Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond over in Germany. We'll probably is very happy that Germany won in their most recent World Cup game. But anyway, we'll check in with him, get his opinions, and then dive into a few topics that are related to what we're here to talk about in the GoodFellas and NFT and artwork world. So what's up, buddy? You happy about Germany?
Of course, man, I am. What do you mean? I thought this was like a special edition World Cup today. I thought we were speaking about the World Cup. I prepared. I checked all the results, man. Is it not about the World Cup? I was wrong.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, looking forward. We can talk about that. Yeah, I'm sure the audience is really happy about that. No, of course, I'm following the World Cup. I'm sure most Americans are not, but I'm not sure. But I don't see too many people, even though like the stadiums are full. Gotta say that. Like I'm very happy that everything is sold out, and it seems like it got a decent hype over there. And yeah, of course, we're following it. It's a little difficult this time because, most games take place at night. Germany usually starts at 10 p.m. our time, which sometimes gets a little tricky, especially, if you have to get up early. And many games take place at like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., something like that. But yeah, I still feel like the United States and all the other countries, Canada, Mexico, are doing a really good job of hosting it. I feel like it definitely managed to create a really good hype because that was something people were worried about over here in Germany, in Europe, because they felt like, it's taking place when we sleep. So how can we get in that mood? But yeah, seems to be pretty successful, and I'm happy you're following it as well. The United States are doing pretty good too. But I gotta be honest, group stage is, not really. It's obviously significant in order to get to the next stage, but teams are not as strong yet. I feel like United States has not had a real opponent yet, but I'm looking forward to get to the next stages. You guys are through. We are through to the next stage, and a lot of great weeks to come. How do you see that? I saw that you followed the last game, right? Against who was it? I forgot.
That's a great question. I forgot too. I was just happy that they won. They had an on goal, and then I was like, well, that's not going to be a good way to win if they end up pulling this game out. And then of course they scored a goal, and I'm like, okay, cool. So that legitimizes it. And
wasn't it Australia? Australia, I guess, right?
Yeah. I think it was Australia. It was, yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it ended up being a really nice goal there at the end, and they pulled it out. I was super happy for that. And I think that so far the teams have been, fairly strong. I mean, it hasn't been like pushover type teams, but yeah, at this stage, obviously going into the rounds, it's going to get more and more and more and more intense and difficult. But the thing is, like when it gets to some of these stages, I think the things that sort of turn Americans off are ties. Like, what the fuck is a tie? How can you have a game where it ends in a tie? It doesn't make any sense. It's the stupidest shit ever. Soccer needs to definitely address that, or football needs to address that, because it just makes the games horrible, and it gives you no complete closure at the end of the day. So there needs to be some way to address that. But Americans are coming out in droves, man.
I need to interrupt you. I need to interrupt you because obviously if you get into the next stage, there is no tie. There is like, obviously a penalty shootout at the end. So that's really exciting as well.
Yeah, for sure. The penalty shootouts are kind of interesting. There's, I think, a nice little game of psychology going on there between the players, who are striking the ball, and then, of course, the goalkeeper. And, of course, having played soccer, I know how intense those moments can be. But, yeah, like even the shootout is kind of like anticlimactic. There should be some sort of like sudden death where they actually have to play and get a goal or something would be really nice. Because, PKs, penalty kicks, like, it's kind of blah. But, it definitely adds some drama. But, yeah, when you have draws, like even in the first rounds, which is the games I was referring to, like it just kind of takes the excitement out of it. But I think it's really cool that, you had mentioned the crowds coming out in droves. It's been really cool to see the different promos from different countries. Norway did a really cool one, where they have that whole rowing thing, where they're hearkening back to the Viking days.
Yeah.
And then they're showing like the rowing, and then you see the Norwegian stadium get pulled off the map and into the ocean, you know, and then like the whole stadium comes across the, you know, the Atlantic and lands, and you know, it's been really cool to kind of see that kind of stuff. So yeah, but I mean, when you look at the finals match, and I mean, even the cheap seats, if you wanted 2 tickets to the cheap seats at like the finals, it was like 30 grand, you know, and then like the good seats are like 50, 60 grand. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of Americans spending money to get there because the Europeans alone wouldn't fill the stadium. So there's definitely quite a bit of excitement here.
Yeah, I think when I saw the United States match on TV here, and they, you know, showed some people who did like live streams and all that stuff. I think even like celebrities attend as well. I think I saw Justin Bieber there, and who's of course a celebrity in my world. But yeah, he's like a lot of attention on these. Like, how big are the stadiums? Like, how many people fit in there? Is it like 60,000 or 70,000 or less?
Depends on the stadium. I mean, sometimes
I think it's football stadiums, right?
Yeah, usually. Yeah, usually. I mean, there's anywhere from, you know, 60, 70 on up to 100 or more, depending on which stadium that they're playing in. I mean, even some of the college football stadiums. I'm not sure. I can't remember which stadiums are all being played in, but most of the professional stadiums are around 60 to 70, yeah.
Yeah, and that's really cool. Like, I'm pretty impressed. They're actually pretty huge, and when I see these amounts of people, they definitely match European soccer stadiums. Gotta say that. And yeah, love to see that. Love the energy. Love the the whole World Cup, and looking forward to all the matches ahead. Right, like you know, the World Cup ends whenever your team is out. When Germany is out, I probably I lose my interest. I'm not sure why, but yeah, it's like you see the whole nation. Like the thing here in Germany is whenever your team wins, they're like, people go crazy in the streets. Like, you get all the cars out there, and they you know, get loud, get all the flags out. The traffic gets terrible. Like, you don't find, like, if you want to get somewhere and, you know, I don't know, Turkey won a match, there is no getting through the city. Like, no way, because all the streets are blocked. Everyone is out there with their flags. Fortunately, Turkey did not win a game, but yeah, that's what happens. People go crazy. Like, there are like masses watching and public viewing on big screens, and I love that we have that energy this year, because a World Cup comes around every 4 years only. And as I said, you know, I was kind of worried about it being in the United States, and, you know, the time shift, and we have to watch in the middle of the night. But yeah, I love these events because yeah, people, you see people be happy. You know, you see so many people, and the energy is great. And yeah, I'm you know, I can get, you know, I spoke with an American about soccer, so I can get that off my bucket list. And it's really cool to see that you're, you know, that you're feeling it as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. People here are definitely watching the games. I'm sure as it progresses, if the U.S. continues to stay in contention, you'll see more and more and more excitement build. So it's been really cool to see. I mean, when I was growing up, soccer was kind of new here. And, you know, my generation sort of led the charge in sort of bringing it to the forefront. And that led to, you know, ultimately like the, you know, the professional soccer leagues here, and then bringing over European players and blah, blah, blah. And so there's generations, at least 2 generations of kids who've grown up with soccer as a professional sport here in the U.S. So that's been really cool to see. And if they stay in contention, man, you'll definitely see the excitement continue to grow. Even people who don't give a shit about soccer will just hope the U.S. wins, right? They'll be out there in droves.
Yeah, I mean that was like big in the news before the World Cup. I mean, I think I read it like a headline that said the World Cup it's the turning point that wins Americans over as fans. And yeah, Major League Soccer is becoming bigger and bigger as well. So curious to see if you guys finally admit that there is only one sport that is worth worth existing. No, football is great as well. I mean, I enjoy football too. Like, I was kind of like, you know, back in the days when I saw it, and I was like, man, so much. Like, I gotta say, one thing that the Americans do, they kind of Americanized soccer, because those hydration breaks, which are obviously not necessary because it's not as hot out there, but those are obviously just to have another commercial break. And this is really, really annoying. And that's like something football does, right? Like you have those breaks all the time, and the game gets interrupted, and that's what has kind of like annoying me all the time when I watch football. Like all these breaks, or in basketball, it's the timeouts all the time. That sucks, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Of course, it definitely slows everything down. An hour game or maybe a 90-minute game turns into a 3-hour affair. Because you've got all the ads in there, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But by the same token, it's part of what helps it become the spectacle, because you have those ad dollars that get reinvested in, jerseys and promo and marketing and all the rest of it to keep people hyped up, right? It takes money to do all that stuff, so it's kind of a trade-off, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, let's get back to topic now. And we actually have a really interesting one today. And we touched on that on the last Spaces episode when I talked to the audience about how they became collectors and how it all started, what the first thing was they ever collected. And that led us to the question, how do we bring traditional collectors into digital collecting? And I think that's actually one of the biggest opportunities in the NFT space. It's not how we attract more traders, because as you guys know, that's how the NFT space kicked off a few years ago. We had a lot of speculators, but the actual question is, how do we attract more collectors? Because when you look outside of Web3, collecting is already a massive global market. And that's what we spoke about on Spaces. You have so many people collecting trading cards, collect art, collect comic books, collect watches, sneakers, all kinds of assets, simply because they enjoy owning them. And we talked about the reason what people actually enjoyed. It was like they enjoy the stories behind them, they enjoy the culture around them, they enjoy being part of communities that share the same passion. So the collecting behavior already exists, right? The question is, why hasn't that behavior translated into digital collecting at a larger scale? Because on paper, digital collectibles should be incredibly attractive. I mean, you and I and the community, we always talk about the fact that there are so many benefits when it comes to digital collecting. Ownership can be verified, assets can be traded globally, collections can be displayed digitally, like we do with the Blocks app that we have. You have no storage costs, no shipping costs. You can build an entire new ownership experience around digital assets, and that's what we try to do at the GoodFellas. Yet, despite all of those advantages, traditional collectors have largely stayed where they are. Most are not collecting NFTs. Most art collectors are not buying art. Most trading card collectors are not collecting NFTs, even though there are actually so many trading card collections out there as well. Like there is a pretty big collection, Chimpers, on Ethereum, and they even imitate that package opening thing that is pretty well known through Pokemon and all the other trading card games, where you can open a package and hope for a very rare card. And this is not happening. That web traditional collectors are collecting NFTs, at least not in meaningful numbers. So we want to talk about that today, and we want to talk about why like so few projects are actively trying to bridge traditional collecting and digital collecting. What's your opinion on this?
Well, there's so many different angles to come at this from. It's hard to really narrow it down to a singular idea. I think the biggest thing that I've seen personally is just that the people who are in the Web3 ecosystem tend to stay there and not look outside. And I think a lot of that comes down to just like the sheer amount of resistance you get when you go to an average person who's outside of that particular market, because you have to go through the whole educational process, the explaining process of wallets and chains and all this other stuff, and then you get that question, well, it's just a JPEG or whatever nonsense they say, because they don't understand digital ownership yet. Then you have to dive into that conversation and explain it. So in some ways, it's just easier to stay inside the little bubble that has become Web3 and hope that your hype and horseshit methodology is going to drive the last 200, collectors from that collection to this collection to the other collection to your collection. because that's kind of what happens is a small population that just keeps moving from collection to collection. So I think at the end of the day, there has to be a willingness to reach out to people and invest in them, because the UI doesn't exist yet. So the average person in the marketplace, when they hear the word NFT, they think about, like Bored Apes, for example. They think about, maybe Beeple's, $67 million sale. They think about the outliers, but they don't necessarily think about the implications and the things that they can do with digital ownership or the potential that tokenization, which is what NFTs really represent, has either in the business world or in the collecting world. And it's going to just take like many, many advances in UI for someone to be able to grab an app and have it just be really, really self-explanatory. Like if you pick up an iPhone or an Android, the OS that you're dealing with is pretty self-explanatory. There's very few buttons. You tap this, you tap that, and the next thing that you know, you're in the app that you want, and you're doing the thing that you want to do. The same can't be said for Web3 yet, especially Web3 wallets, especially if you start going multi-chain and you want this piece of art, but you've got wallet X that doesn't touch that specific chain, and now you have to learn how to do this and house multiple wallets. So until the UI comes in and makes it like super just like idiot proof, you're going to have to go into the market of collectors and start educating the early adopters, like the people who have interest, pull them aside, video content, marketing to them, getting them on a list, getting them in the world, removing the fear, removing the sort of, cloak and dagger aspect of everything is hard and difficult and secret. And then you'll start to see more interest, from that marketplace occur. So I think this is really where the opportunity lies for us, specifically when I look at new buyers, because we really want to bring new blood in, and in order to do that, we really need to invest in new blood. And when you think about just the gap, the chasm between the knowledge that they need versus the knowledge that they have present, it's just a huge amount of information that's got to go out. So I think there needs to be dedicated channels for those types of people. And this is one of the things that I see an opportunity for myself and for us going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Many good points. I mentioned it before, right? Like, and that you as well. Like, there are actually so many collectors out there already, but it's hard to onboard them with the existing UI we have and the experience for users. But what do you think it was a big problem that the industry, or not the industry, the NFT space became so focused on crypto native users instead of people who are already passionate about collecting?
I don't think that was ever really even considered. Honestly, I think NFTs were an accident. When CryptoPunks came out, there had already been attempts to create non-fungible tokens. There were ordinals on NFTs. Ordinals on Bitcoin that weren't really called ordinals. There was attempts to create non-fungible tokens on all the chains, and then of course CryptoPunks sort of legitimized it and became the first. And then when people found that they could create a market around this sort of exploded in and around the trading world, the degen world, and it was a very small world. And so if you learned about that world early on, you were sort of, you were probably an early adopter and probably already exposed to what was happening on chain, at least to some degree. And that didn't necessarily dictate that you were going to go out into the world and start telling everyone else about NFTs. It just meant that you were participating in this thing. And during that initial run-up, there was enough interest to bring in new people who got decimated, of course, in the marketplace. And then, when you look back on that, there was never really an attempt made to educate people on what investing looks like. This is probably the first market that I can remember in my lifetime, and maybe my dad's and my grandfather's lifetime, where there was no education going into the market. If you wanted to buy a stock, then you had to, sit down with a stockbroker and have an account and understand profits and losses and understand how that would affect your net worth. And that was moved online, a couple decades ago, and trading was basically brought in-house. But even then, you still had to set up an account with some sort of trading house, and you had to sign a bunch of documents saying that you understood what you were getting yourself into, and that you could incur real losses, and that you might lose money. You had all those cautions, and then you were buying companies or organizations that were publicly traded and had public information widely available. The crypto market was the exact opposite of that. It's just like, yeah, hey, you got $5? Hey, throw it into a wallet and spend it over here. And oh, you don't know who's running this project? Oh, that's fantastic. This anonymous jackass over here, I'm sure is going to be very responsible when you give them your money, and then you had, all of these younger people coming in just like doing this really stupid shit. I don't know this person, but I'm going to give them $1,000. I don't know this person, but I'm going to give them $1,000. It makes no sense whatsoever. So I don't think, these types of people were ever the real target of the market. It was just a bunch of early adopters who came together and said, hey, can we do this thing? And then word spread that, hey, so-and-so made 100% in one afternoon on an NFT sale. And then all of a sudden their buddy decided, oh, you know what, it's a good idea for me to look at these things. My buddy over here just made, 100% on his investment in a couple hours, right? And where else can you do that? It's very hard to do that in traditional markets. So, the degen nonsense spread, and it brought in all of those people who were greedy, and you got what you got. And of course that reputation spread because those people who lost made sure that they told the entire world that it was a scam and this and that and the other thing, rather than just understanding that they came into a market they didn't know. They invested with people they didn't know. They were working with technologies that they didn't know or fully understand, and they got burned, and they got burnt like toast. And, everybody, there's a saying in business, like for every one person you do wrong, they're going to tell 11 people. And I think that number's actually gone up. So like for every person that got burnt, you can multiply that by 10 or 20. And for every person who won, you can multiply that by like 2. So the negative press is always going to spread faster than the positive press. And that's kind of what happened, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, good point. I mean, you mentioned basically the last NFT cycle, right? When so many communities were centered around floor prices.
That's the only NFT cycle. There are no NFT cycles. Yeah, we don't have enough information to have it. There's no NFT cycles. We had an NFT bubble, and that's it. There's no cycles.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, the only NFT cycle we had so far, where everything was centered around floor prices, market caps, flipping, trading, next 10x, yeah, we know that traditional collector communities tend to focus on very, very different things. You mentioned some of the reasons why traditional collectors never entered NFTs in large numbers. So we got user experience, we got lack of trust, we got speculation that took place until now. What else? Like, do you think weak IP is another reason people do not pay too much attention to this?
Weak IP, possibly. Yeah, I mean, for sure, that's going to play a role. I'm not sure to what degree, but I think the biggest thing is just people not being taken care of, and making stupid decisions has driven, much of the negative news. And the weak IP piece is certainly a factor. But the truth is, like, if you look at how many NFT projects drop and how much art is just absolute garbage, there's no shortage of it, and there's no shortage of people buying it. So I can't say that would be the determining factor.
Yeah, get that. I mean, if you look at the user experience, for example, you can solve that problem, right? Like you can build great tools and increase the user experience for everyone and make things easier. But what about lack of trust? How do you think can we build back that trust and let people change their mind about the current state of the NFT market?
Yes, absolutely. But again, trust is something that it's one of those things that can't be created immediately. It has to be built over a period of time and experiences. And, when you look at kind of what we're doing with the slow build out, with a small community of tight-knit people, the whole purpose of that is to generate trust with those folks, right? Like, and this is something that hype can never do. So I think that if trust is what you want to go for, then you have to set up a series of experiences that allow people to test that. Like a trade, for example, like a private trade. Hey, I'm gonna, I have this piece, you have that piece. Let's trade. And let's trade absent a third-party mediary. In other words, there's no escrow. I just send you my piece and you send me your piece. And we trust that we're going to complete that transaction, because obviously once a transaction goes into someone else's wallet, you can't get it back. There's no reneging on that on that trade. So I think that when you look at what's possible, you have to intentionally create that. And when you do that, and you do that over a period of time, and you have enough people, even if it's just a handful of people who understand that this is the way with this particular brand, that word ultimately spreads, and it just takes time for the spread to become exponential. So you're going to have to go through all of the, sort of the lean times, I would say, like the lack of interest times. Pick up a person, go through more of that, pick up another person, go through more of that, pick up another person. And as those people become educated and start spreading the message for you, that message can become exponential. But again, like throughout that entire time period, when everything seems to be sort of, I guess you'd say, quiet or sort of mundane, you have to maintain the energy and maintain the possibility of creating those experiences until that message takes hold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But that kind of brings me to the next point, and that's something we touched on Spaces as well. What actually makes people care about a collectible, and I feel like that's something where we can learn so much from the most successful collectible markets in the world, especially in Web3. I mean, think about Pokemon, think about comic books, think about sports cars, even luxury collectibles or fine art. So many different examples. The value is not just in the object. The value comes from everything surrounding the object, right? Like the stories, the history, the emotional attachment, the identity, the culture. We've mentioned all that. People are not simply buying an item; they're buying a connection. So the NFT space became very, very good at launching collections, but building lasting IP and building stories, identity, culture is a completely different challenge. Do you think projects have done good so far?
Not really, no. I mean, most of the lore stuff, story stuff is just really trite and not very well thought out. It's not something I would consider a good story. There's a few people who I think have done a pretty decent job of creating a universe or a world, but in terms of telling stories around it, no, not really. I mean, there's a long way to go. And I think that, with the tools available to you today, whether you're working with an artist or a script writer or even AI tools, like there's so many tools available to you that are affordable that it only makes sense that you work on that, like that you really invest in building it up and creating something that's really, really high quality that can go somewhere.
Absolutely, and that's why it's almost actually pretty hard to judge the NFT space in its current state, because how long are NFTs around? Like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. I think it started 2019. It became mainstream in 2021 or late 2020, and some wise man, and that wise man was you, told me that it built 7 years to build a brand, right? So in the end, we haven't even reached that age in the NFT space. So when projects launch today, they cannot expect to build a story, build a culture, build an identity within 6 months, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you definitely, I mean, if you're thinking in terms of months, you've already lost. If you're going to build anything that's wide ranging and long lasting, it's going to take years, if not decades. So you definitely want to start thinking in longer term periods of time. And without that, I mean, absent that, you're setting yourself up for failure. I think one of the reasons so many founders quit and so many artists quit is because they think it's going to happen immediately. And this is true in the traditional business world as well. Like people open up a business or start a shop and then they realize, oh crap, just because I like, spa services, or just because I like, Greek yogurt, or just because I like coffee, that doesn't mean that people are going to pour through your front door. You have to put in the effort to build the brand and create an environment that people, will actually patronize and come and spend time and money in. And that takes a lot of, invitations, a lot of selling, a lot of story, a lot of advertising. And the worst thing that you can do is sit on your stuff and sit back and hope that, if you build it, they will come, which is what so many people say, which is one of the dumbest things ever. I mean, it's a cool line, in a movie, but in the real world, if you build it, they're not going to come unless there's something in it for them. They have to find value there. They have to find some sort of, meaningful service provision there. They have to have an affinity for it. Whatever the case may be, they're not just going to show up at your door. And, I saw this a lot actually in the gym world, coming from the CrossFit world. In that particular industry, the way CrossFit does their franchising is you buy the CrossFit name and then you put it on your business, and you can name your business whatever you want. And there's no specific operating system that you have to follow. You run your gym your way. And the whole idea was like the best operators will win. And so what I saw is a lot of people would invest, $50,000, $60,000 in gym equipment and sign a 5-year lease, on a space, and obligate themselves to all this, expense because they loved CrossFit and they wanted to, have their own space and this and that and the other thing. And then they realized that, on day one, when they opened their doors, no one was there. Now all of a sudden, you got a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 rent payment due. You're out 50, 60 grand on equipment, and you've got one person in your gym, So you realize really quickly you have to learn how to sell and market and, create a story and create a brand around what it is that you're doing that attracts your ideal customer. And if you don't do that, you might as well forget it. You're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. I mean, we've touched on that topic about being able to sell on spaces plenty of times already. One thing I wanted to touch on is that one thing that came into play with NFTs, and that was not really a thing before when we had those traditional collectibles, and that's utility. Utility is actually something that that is, we've had so many collections out there, especially in the past, claiming that they build big utilities for their NFTs, and that ended up being staking rewards, or I don't know, being able to participate in raffles. And it's not supposed to be a discussion about IP versus utility, because I think that's the wrong way to look at it. Utility definitely matters. And in fact, one of the biggest advantages digital collectibles have over physical collectibles is that they can provide entirely new ownership experiences. And yeah, we've talked about that so many times already. Collectors should have better ways to display collections. That's why we got the Blocks app, better ways to organize collections, better ways to showcase identity, better ways to interact with what they own. And digital ownership should unlock experiences that simply are not possible in the physical world. And that's where utility becomes very, very powerful. But in the end, with all the stuff we've seen in the past from collections trying to deliver quote unquote utility, where do you think the line is between utility that enhances collecting and utility that distracts from collecting?
I don't think utility versus, well, let me rephrase this, because anything can be a utility. So first of all, let's just open up the, the broad term of what a utility is. A utility is something that someone looks at your project and they find useful, right? It can be anything. It can be status, it can be art, it can be tech, whatever the case may be, it doesn't really matter. But if you're building a project that is going to be long-standing, you're going to have basically to consider that the people that you're bringing in are going to have certain needs and certain wants, right? And so in our particular project, we are artwork first, IP rights-based business who serves high-end collectors and creators. And so the question becomes not, what random utility can I create? It's what would my person want or need? And what would they find valuable? So if I'm a collector, and I am in the real world and on chain, what would I find valuable enough for me personally to go and spend the time and the energy and the effort to use, right? And if I'm a collector of beautiful things, I want to be able to see them. Like that's just rule number one. Like I want to be able to see the stuff. Like I've got probably 20,000 comics, right? And of those comics, there's probably a good, 20% of them that have just absolutely beautiful cover art. And the cover art is just outstanding, right? And I've actually framed some of them. But if I want to see them, I have to physically pull them out of a stack and I have to put them somewhere visible where I can actually enjoy that visual. And NFTs is no different. If you're collecting beautiful visuals, you've got a stack of digital collectibles stuck in a wallet somewhere. The question is, how can you view them, or how can you display them in a meaningful way, or at least a way that's fun for you to play with, right? And so from my perspective as a collector, both digital and in the real world, is all right. Well, I want to be able to take my collection, create some sort of visual, and I want to be able to display that back to myself and to other people. So that's the genesis of the Blocks app. It's like, what would a collector want, right? And you've already seen multiple collectors, interested in taking the Blocks app and building visuals and posting them on X, because that's why we're here. I mean, it's like, hey, check out my shit. Look at my stuff. This is what I've invested in, or this is what I find beautiful, or, et cetera, so on and so forth. And when I think through this, most projects are not focused on the market or the person that they want to serve. They're focused on how they can take from the market, or how they can ultimately take from the market. I got stuck on some 200 person DM messaging thing, right? For this person who's doing a drop. And the whole reason behind it isn't to provide value. It's to give away some free nonsense up front so that I can get on their wallet list and they can market something to me in the future that they want me to pay for. And that's a perfectly legitimate use of a list. But when it comes to utility, why would I be, why am I interested in the first place? Why am I on this list? Why did you pick me? Do we have a similar value system? Are we of the same character? Do we like the same visuals? None of that stuff was considered. It's just anybody and everybody. Anybody and everybody is welcome. And when you do this type of thing, you're basically serving yourself, because what you're saying is, I want to sell my stuff. I want to bring people into my world. I want them to take a look at what I'm doing, and I'm willing to give it away for free for them to do that. And that's fine, so long as at the end of the day, you have a way to back that up and sift and sort all the dregs that you brought in. Because if you're giving all this stuff away for free, people are just going to sell it and go into something that they are interested in, or trade it or dump it for something else that they're interested in. So when it comes to utility, it starts with the people that you want to serve, and then following through all the way through to the needs and their wants as it relates to your specific project. So random lists, freebie nonsense, all of this degen stuff took you out of that mode of being outward focused and into that mode of me. And so in this marketplace, rather than it being, how can I serve? It's been, how can I serve myself? And GoodFellas is the antithesis of that. It's like, how can I serve my people? So when we start creating apps, it's about, what would a collector enjoy? What would a collector appreciate? What would a collector like to see? And then we go in and ask, hey, is this something you like? If so, can it be made better? And then it comes, you create that loop of that feedback loop of the person says, yeah, I like this, but I want it to do that. And then you go back to the drawing board and you redo it and you put it out again. And you just keep going through this loop where the market that you want to serve, or the person that you want to serve, is telling you, hey, this is what I want. This is what helps me. And I think if more projects adopted that idea, they would forget random utilities and start thinking about vertically integrating what they're doing with what they want to produce. The Blocks app is a perfect complement to a collector, right? It may not be a perfect complement to other types of collections, but for us, it's a perfect complement.
Yeah, indeed. Very good points. And I mean, that's what we've been trying to do from the very beginning, right? Serving collectors. And when you speak about the necessity of utilities, I mean, some utility improves ownership, as Pinstripe We got some utilities improving collecting, as you mentioned, the Blocks app. But sometimes I felt like projects wanted to add utility because they believe the collectible itself isn't strong enough, right? And we, on the other hand, we have such strong IP that it could live without the utility as well. In fact, it did for quite some time. But like I said, great utility can improve the collecting experience, of course, but utility alone rarely creates emotional attachment. People usually fall in love with the collectible first, then they appreciate the tools and experiences built around it. And that's what I love about the tools we have and the GoodFellas ecosystem. But that kind of brings me to the last question and the last discussion point. What needs to change if we genuinely want traditional collectors to enter digital collecting? I think several things, of course, need to happen. We mentioned most of them already. First, we need stronger IP. No, not stronger hype cycles, not stronger speculation, not stronger tokenomics, stronger brands. We need stronger characters, stronger stories, and all that. I feel like when like how much of the adoption problem do you think is actually like the technology and onboarding problem? Like, do you think if we manage to build the UI and if we have a good user experience and we like what would be your action plan in order to get in touch with those guys? Like, do you feel like let's pick Facebook, for example. I know you and I, we always speak about Facebook to get in touch with traditional artists. You and I, we know that as soon as the term NFT drops, people usually run away. So what do you think needs to happen first in order to at least get their attention and get some minutes of their lives in order to explain them what you want to do?
I mean, I think it's always the same. You lead with what people might be interested in, right? And if you're going into a market that's unfamiliar, you do the same thing. It's like the kid on the street corner selling newspapers back in the 1920s, right? He always leads with a hook, like whatever the news of the day was or whatever the big deal was, he's always shouting, hey, come learn about blah, 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 right? You lead with the hook. Like, what is going to bring people in? What is going to draw attention to what it is that you're doing? And if you don't start with that, you're dead before you even, get going. So I think, at the end of the day, what you really want to do is focus on, like if I'm going into an artist community on Facebook, which I've been doing, I do job postings, because these guys want to work, hey, I've got a job. It's going to require this, blah, 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 blah. It's paid work, blah, blah, And then I get 100 people in my DMs saying, hey, this is my stuff. Tell me more about the project, right? And so it's not hard. And from there, like if you develop a communication with a particular artist or a particular person, you can start diving into deeper subject matter. But you would never show up and just be like, hey, why don't you guys do NFTs, man? It's like, why would I want to? What are you talking about? Like, what? This is an artist community. What are you saying? It doesn't make any sense, right? Even though on the back end of that, there's a whole host of things that would benefit them if they did do digital work or NFT work, because they could start creating residuals and royalties and all this kind of other stuff, right? But you can't sum that up in a really catchy headline, right? So if I wanted to go into a creator space and I wanted to, like really catch attention, I'm going to do a job posting like this, or I might say, how many of you people have, how many of you people sell digital prints online? And I might get a laundry list of people. And I might go back into that thread and say, okay, how many of you people would like to get royalties on secondary sales of your work? And they'll be like, what? You mean you can do that? And then, you keep going down the rabbit hole until you get to the specific ask, which is, hey, let's talk a little bit about NFTs or digital collectibles and how they can, positively impact what it is that you want to do. So, I mean, it's not that hard, but it does require effort. And until people realize that, what can you do?
Yeah, I love the idea that we always had on Spaces. I think Mark came up with it. Do you think rebranding NFTs as digital collectibles could improve public perception and help drive broader market adoption?
It certainly couldn't hurt. It definitely couldn't hurt. So
Yeah,
whether it's the end all be all or not, it's definitely not going to hurt.
yeah, absolutely. Like that term NFT is kind of it needs to die. We need to kill it. And yeah, I think the NFT space would actually agree, and we could collectively do that. Yeah, some closing thoughts. I when I thought about that topic, the more I thought about it, the more I believe the opportunity is really big right now. Right, like we always say that we are so early, and digital collecting itself is probably going to be the future of collecting, right? Like everything becomes digital. I mean, the only thing that I read as an argument from someone who actually made a post and wrote about the fact that he is never going to collect digital pieces was that he needs tangible stuff. Like he needs to be able to actually put something up his shelf, or actually, be able to touch something. What do you think? Is that like a valid reason? I mean, it obviously is, right? But in the end, I feel like you just mentioned your comic books. How much space do they take in your house? Probably a lot, right? 20,000. That's quite some space that it probably needs, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to have the ability to store whatever it is that you collect.
Yeah, and you need to pay attention that, I don't know, that does like the when you store it on like, I don't know, wherever you store. I don't even know where you store comics. I don't own a single one, but do you need to store it in a certain way so that the condition stays good?
Yeah, comics are stored in boxes. They make boxes that are specifically for them. So you can get short boxes or long boxes, and they'll hold, one box will hold anywhere from 100 to 125, and the long box you might hold up to 200 to 250 books, depending on their thickness. So they just sit in like-sized boxes, and you can stack the boxes in one area, and they're not spread out all over the room. So. But again, like if the challenge isn't in collecting them, it's in like if you wanted to display like I said, a specific piece of cover art, that's the challenge, because then you have to go back and dig through everything. Just like if you have 1,000 NFTs in your wallet, you have to go back and dig through them all to find the one that you want to display. And then of course, if it's physical, then you need a physical storage medium, and then you need a physical wall or someplace, or a frame or someplace to put it. So that's really the only difference. But for me, if I'm doing digital, I want to be able to do physical as well. I want to be able to print the pieces out and enjoy them. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense for me.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I get the argument of people saying that it needs to be tangible, especially for things like, let's say, action figures, right? Like those being digital is probably not the best, but especially art. If you think about, or trading cards, that can all be digital, right? Like as you mentioned, comics, of course, as well, right? Like you read them, you can display them on your screen. It's a lot easier if you have 20,000 comics and you want Spider-Man edition 4, I don't know, from 1990s. Well, man, I have no idea about comics, so I'm kind of rambling. But you can just pull it out by typing it into a search bar, and that makes things a lot easier. And in the end, ultimately, we definitely need stronger bridges between traditional collecting and digital collecting, of course, as we mentioned, because if millions of people are already spending billions of dollars every year collecting physical assets, maybe the biggest opportunity is not finding new collectors for the NFT space. It's finally giving existing collectors a compelling reason to step into the digital world. And we keep working on that, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's really what it's all about, because again, the market only grows when new blood comes in. And if you don't have that, you've got nothing. So, aside from, again, like the same 200 people going from project to project, I mean, unless you think that's some sort of long-term solution, and it obviously isn't, you have to do something different. And it's just as simple as that. There's no two ways about it. So absolutely, it has to be, there has to be outreach. And I mean, we've talked about this a bit, and as time permits, building in these systems to actually create that, is a primary goal. So, and two, like, bringing in new blood is nice because you don't deal with the stigma and the distrust and the nonsense that, people have, may or may not have experienced, in their previous NFT project where they got screwed, So I think the new blood is just, it's really the only way for it to go, to be quite honest with you. It has to go that way.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think about the fact that barely any NFT project cares about it, right? Like if I came into the space and let's just word it this way. Like if I came for the money, right? Like I wouldn't care about it as well. Like I would just drop my collection. I would try to build as much hype as possible. I would know that. Look at it's actually funny, right? Like we had that little reorder drop a couple of weeks ago, and that was created by an artist from Portugal, Spain, I'm not sure, but he made that drop on Ethereum. He dropped 6,000 pieces, an art drop, right? Like he's an artist. I have to say that again. And when I read about that project on my timeline in the past days, all I saw was people speaking about the floor price, right? So you have an art drop and nobody's speaking about the art. And that's quite interesting and quite like telling us what kind of collectors we have here. And the floor price tripled. It was worth $20 in the beginning. Now it's worth $70. But I haven't heard anyone speaking about the art. And that's quite sad, right? Like that shows so much about the people who collected that. Because in the end, the question remains, we had that drop sold out pretty quick, actually, 6,000 pieces. Do we actually have so many dedicated digital art collectors in the space already? What do you think? Or does it necessarily mean that, you must have a majority of flippers in there?
It's hard to say. I think the majority of people across collections right now are flippers in some way, shape, or form. There are very few people who you can legitimately say, no matter how much they claim they love the art, no matter how much they claim that, there's very few people who could legitimately claim that, oh yeah, for sure, I'm here for the artwork. Because at some point there's a price at which they would part with the artwork, right? So you could run the price all the way up and test that. But it's pretty obvious, based on what we've already seen. So, it's always going to be a mix, and you're never going to be 100%, but what you want to shoot for is, some version of close to, right? The thing is, I think that, the big thing, and I've said this a few times, so I apologize for repeating myself to those of you guys who've already heard it. But the big thing for a creator is to decide who you want to serve first and foremost. And then if you do that and you only speak to that person, good marketing, good messaging will do two things. It will draw in the person you want, and it will repel the people that you don't want. And I think people forget the repelling part, right? Because everybody wants to be liked and gassed up and told that they're beautiful and wonderful and everything is perfect in the world. But the truth is, you have to repel the people you don't want, or you're going to end up with them. And so, for us, that was one of the things that we talked about from the get-go. We need to get rid of all the degens. So we had this gated ordinal drop to basically buy a ticket to be part of the community. And that's the way it was, And of course, it's opened up since then. But you have to do those sorts of things if you're serious about serving a specific individual. If you're serving degens, you're going to talk about trading. You're going to talk about floor prices. If you're serving collectors, you're going to talk about beautiful things and how they can display them, and you're going to gamify it to some degree. If you're talking about artwork, then it's going to be a focus on the beauty of the creator or the artwork or the status of that creator or what have you. So there's all these different, avenues you can go. But the truth is, you just decide who you want to serve, and then you speak to that person, and you'll have less worry in terms of who ends up showing up.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and a really important point. I love that you keep repeating that, because it's really important, right? And the biggest indicator that you're actually serving collectors is not having a huge transaction volume and a floor price that triples. It's actually having barely any listings, because people you target actually want to keep what you drop, and that's what's happening in the GoodFellas. And whenever you see someone list a piece within our community. Usually they trade pieces. When someone needs a particular number, they just trade pieces. And then you have people like, I don't know, Mark, or I saw Jen Shaw recently. She listed a piece for the price she paid for it, right? Like she's not here for the Big Mac or for the burger, right? Like she's not trying to flip or do anything. She's like, hey, I got my piece. I want to, sell the piece I got for the price I paid, and give another collector the chance to get that piece for the initial mint price. And that's really cool. And those are the indicators where you see what kind of people you attracted, doing the stuff you did and building the projects you built. And that's what I love to see. I love to see selling out a collection of 200 pieces and not a single additional listing. And I think those are things that matter. That's what I love about the community. But that's the thing that takes time, right? If the reorder guy dropped his collection and wanted to make sure to get those pieces to people who actually care about art, that sellout would have taken a lot longer, but it probably would have been more like sustainable, right? Like in the end, we are not sure how it's going to turn out, but all I can say is that I think that we've been on the right path for the last couple of years, and we definitely need to continue to do what we do. And in the end, I'm sure that we will get traditional collectors into the space of digital collectibles. And this is probably the biggest opportunity right now. We are very early. We say that all the time as well. And last but not least, we want to touch on the GoodFellas and what's been going on in our project. So first of all, we got the Artist Incubator drop coming up on July 3. This is going to be another beautiful addition to the art gallery we've been building for years now. Lilia is going to join us. Her piece, Guardian of the Sun, is, I say unique all the time whenever we drop a piece, but again, this is like unlike anything we've had so far. So I'm really, really hyped for this piece, excited to see what you guys think about it. And maybe we can drop a little hint here. So it's a little different from the pieces we've recently dropped. It's not as PFP-ish as most of the pieces in the gallery. And if you look at the recent art pieces she did, you can get an idea of the way she creates things and the art she creates. So I think she's very talented. She's very professional. Love having her in the gallery, and cannot wait for that drop. So keep an eye out for July 3. And on top of that, we got another update to the Blocks app. Blocks now supports MP4 for bosses. Jason turned that little ability on, and I've seen so many great pieces and grids on X. So definitely make sure to create your grid, your favorite pieces, your favorite collections, and show them to the people. Like, show your digital collectibles. It's important. We love what we do, and is there anything still in the working for the Blocks app? I know Mark reaches out to you whenever he has ideas. Are there any things still to be done, or are you satisfied with the app the way it is right now?
There's always going to be something to do. I mean, I think the biggest thing right now is just going to be smoothing out UI and then converting it to a mobile app. Those are going to be the big things. But the basics are there, and the basics seem to function quite well. Obviously, we'll keep refining that. But for the most part, it's going to be refining what's there more than adding in new stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, really good. Definitely keep an eye out on that. We'll keep you guys updated, of course. And then one highlight this week, actually, we got a little siren dropped with a cool shirt on it in honor of Father's Day. And this piece was created by you for NFT NYC. What does it actually mean? Like, are we like being published there, or what does it mean? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the NFT NYC website, and this is another indicator of where the market's going. They have there's a company called HubSpot that does basically CSM work or CSR work with an autoresponder. For those of you guys who don't know, like customer resource manager, CRMs. I'm sorry, I said it backwards. CRMs, customer resource managers, and autoresponders are like automated email services. And HubSpot created a platform called OneHub. And what OneHub does is it basically grants you like an application that lives on base. And so NFT NYC has set up a OneHub application to start building community around what it is that they're doing. And so the piece that I dropped for Father's Day, excuse me, I dropped there just simply because, just simply because I wanted to participate in the ecosystem and start promoting our art at different conventions and events. And, if all you basically had to do is if you just sign up on the OneHub, on the NFT NYC OneHub account, you basically get free tokens and you could just purchase this print of the I Love Hot Dads drop for Father's Day. And the whole purpose of that was to obviously get GoodFellas more exposure, link back to our stuff, get the art in more hands. And then, of course, reward the community, because basically it's as free as going to get, because you get free tokens when you sign up and you can spend them on the piece. And so I thought it was a nice little opportunity to do all of those things in one fell swoop.
How do we get ourselves exhibited in NFT NYC? How do we get on like one of those Times Square screens?
You have to submit for it, and they don't even have that live yet. So as much as they've talked about wanting submissions, they're doing it through the OneHub portal, and it's not live yet. So if you go to the homepage and you see where the missions are, one of the missions that you can accomplish, or one of the apps that they want to build and unlock, is submission, and it's not available. It's just locked. So that tells me that they're still working on it behind the scenes, which is fine, because obviously the event's still quite a ways off. But all of the information about it already being due and already being passed, I don't think is accurate, just simply because they're way behind on the development. And again, this is a base app, and so you're dealing with ETH, and it's clunky, and the notifications don't work 100%, and it's not very fast. So if you're accustomed to social media apps being blazing fast, this is the challenge when you build on blockchain. It's not going to work that way. And Base is no different. Again, it's just like it's basically an ETH EVM. So until the platforms get to the place where, or the EVMs get to the place where, you can have these blazing fast transaction speeds, you're always going to have this lag and this sort of delay, which is really why it's not a good idea to build this type of stuff on a blockchain, at least not right now. But it's a cool idea, and it basically creates another gamified situation where you can go in and collect artwork, have it in an account. It doesn't have to be held in a wallet. You can connect a wallet if you choose. So it's really easy to use for the person who doesn't have a wallet and doesn't understand wallets. And again, this is, more steps in the right direction for UI, which we've talked about. So it's about participating in the ecosystem, supporting people who are trying to do the right thing, which in this case, again, sidestep the wallet nonsense and just go straight to accounts, and just enjoy what's coming up and see what's going on with other people. So kind of cool.
Absolutely, yeah, it is, and it was a good little surprise. Even I didn't know, and when I saw that in the morning, I was like, I loved it. Like, I love that it's very simple, but for some reason, like the I love hot dads on the shirt and everything, that looks really cool. And you chose a really good siren, so good job. And that's a wrap. I think we got through many interesting topics today. Keep an eye out for the Artist Incubator drop, of course. Get your I Love Hot Dads piece. As Jason said, it's free. You just need to sign up. And we will be live on MintMap Spaces on Fridays. On Friday, I'll get the link ready ASAP, so make sure to bookmark. And we look forward to see you guys on Friday. Jason, any final words for the audience?
No, I don't think so. The I Love Hot Dads, we're going to turn into a 21s piece. We'll do a different version of it, but with the same graphic on the shirt. We had a couple requests for that, so we'll get that out to you guys as kind of a bonus. So don't worry about that. We'll bring that into Solana where you can see it in your wallet with the other pieces. But aside from that, have a great week, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you guys on Friday. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.